Welcome to US Daily News Channel. Satellite images show the sudden disappearance of a fleet of 42 Russian attack helicopters in Belarus. Belarus, a close ally of Russia, supported its eastern neighbor in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Before the offensive began, Belarus allowed the Russian armed forces to conduct weeks-long military exercises on its territory. And when the time came for the Russians to finish the exercises, Belarus did not leave Belarusian territory. The country did not oppose the use of Russian troops, which they actively use, as a launching pad for the invasion of Ukraine, since the Belarusian border is close to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. Belarus initially denied it had anything in common with the conflict, but has since acknowledged allowing Russian missile launchers stationed on its territory to fire at Ukrainian targets. Several reports appeared in the Belarusian opposition media and in the Ukrainian army that Belarusian troops were fighting alongside the Russians on Ukrainian soil, but Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko dismissed them and said that the Belarusian armed forces would not directly participate in the conflict. Belarusian borders were actively used by the Russian army in the following days. Many Russian battleships, warplanes and helicopters deployed to the country under the pretext of exercises continued to operate in the region. In the presented reports, active participation in the occupation of Ukraine through the territory of Belarus was detected. The latest news has brought new question marks. Satellite images obtained show that today 42 Russian combat helicopters have disappeared from Belarusian military airports over the course of 3 hours. Considering two different satellite images and data from Belarusian military sources who wish to remain anonymous, 42 combat helicopters flew east from Mychulishchi Airport. This raised the possibility that the connection between Russia and Ukraine was provided by these helicopters. According to a number of data provided by sources in Belarus, helicopters flew towards Seshcha Airport, but at the moment it was not possible to verify this data in any way. However, it was reported by the Ukrainian armed forces that the same models of helicopters flying to this airport were later seen in the Kharkiv region. A squadron of Russian helicopters hosting Ka-52, Mi-8 variations is known to be located on the territory of the Mychulishchi military airfield, but at the moment the airport is actually empty. Some sources report that a similar situation has been observed at other military airfields in Belarus, but there is no confirmation of these data. No precise data was shared about the sudden disappearance of the helicopters. However, towards the end of March, it was announced that Russia had gathered its helicopters in Belarus and took a position to attack. Russia maintains about 90 helicopters at an airbase in central Belarus ready to intervene in the war in Ukraine, according to commercial satellite images of airbases and forward operational sites in the Eastern European country. The Russian Aerospace Forces has deployed about 180 attack and heavy-lift helicopters to Belarus to support Moscow's ground troops fighting in Ukraine, but satellite images of March 3 and 6 show that only half have so far been deployed for forward flight at operation sites near the Ukrainian border. The remainder, including more than 15 Mi-26 heavy-lift helicopters and more than 70 Mi-8 attack helicopters, are based at Mychulishchi Airbase outside Minsk, the capital of Belarus. These seem overwhelmingly Russian Air Force assets. The Belarusian Air Defense also operated helicopters from the base before the war, but according to pre-war satellite images there were usually less than 10 helicopters there. Since the start of its invasion-focused war against Ukraine, the Russian military has used about 80 helicopters from 3 forward theaters in southeastern Belarus to bring them into Kiev's operating range. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation later posted video footage online, which appears to show these sites along with the Kamov Ka-52s, Mil Mi-8s, Mi-24s and Mi-28s that were there. They seem to have remained in operation, providing logistical, strike and airborne escort support to the Russian troops fighting around Kyiv. It was announced by the British intelligence that the Russian forces withdrawing from Kyiv and Chernihiv were also gathered in Belarus to make preparations again. The report from the UK Ministry of Defence stated that Russia withdrew to Belarusian territory due to difficulties in reorganizing its units. It is also necessary to examine the war positions that Belarus has taken from the first days of the invasion of Russia to this day. In the initial stages of the military conflict, Belarus lent its territory to Russians for them to attack, but did not seem to have sent its own soldiers into the conflict. On the day of invasion, the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine reported about Russian troops trying to break through the Belarus-Ukraine border at the Vilcha border crossing, and a helicopter without identification marks attacking a bridge near Slavetich. CNN published a video showing tanks entering Ukraine through the Senkivka border crossing on the tripoint with Russia. Also on that day, Chernobyl, together with the nearby former nuclear power plant, was seized after Russian troops entered Ukraine from Belarus via the unpopulated Chernobyl exclusion zone. Belarus also allowed military installations to shoot from its territory towards its southern neighbor, or to cross its border southbound. Already on the 24th of February, the Ukrainian commander-in-chief reported that 4 ballistic missiles were launched from Belarus towards the southwest. 2 days later, Maxar Technologies published satellite images with 150 helicopters and hundreds of ground vehicles stationed near Koiniki, some 50 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, with 90 helicopters using a local straight road as a temporary airbase. 3 days later, the Ukrainian Center for Strategic Communication reported that Zhytomyr Airport was bombed by the missiles launched from the territory of Belarus. On the 8th of March, ImageSat International published satellite images of 3 Iskander missile launchers in the field near Kalinkovichy, and new planes Russian A-50 or A-100 and Mi-26 heavy helicopters at Beranovichy Air Base. Eventually, reports of Belarusian troops in Ukraine started to appear. On the 25th of February, the Ukrainian media published a video with a Russian POW who claimed to have entered Ukraine via Homyl region of Belarus and said that the Belarusian military did not stop him. On the 28th of February, Belarusian opposition media outlet Charter 97 claimed that some Belarusian soldiers were among the wounded and killed invasion troops in Ukraine, citing anonymous Belarusian and Ukrainian sources. A Ukrainian senior military official later said to the public broadcaster Suspiln that Belarusian soldiers have been spotted on the ground in Chernihiv Oblast since the 27th of February and that they were moving from Horodnia towards Chernihiv, the capital of the northernmost region of Ukraine. However, the office of the president could not confirm the reports. On the 6th of March, a Ukrainian presidential advisor, Oleksiy Arestovich, said that the Belarusian army had not taken part in the invasion thus far, claiming that they were Russian attempts to involve it in military operations. There was no independent confirmation Russian troops wounded in Ukraine are reportedly treated by Belarusian and Russian doctors in Homyl and in other cities of Homyl region. Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine are reported to be placed in morgues in the Homyl region. On the 13th of March, Ukrainian media reported that treatment of wounded Russian soldiers in Belarusian hospitals led to exhaustion of all blood reserves made for this purpose, and the doctors started to use blood reserves for civil population of Belarus. It was also reported that Belarusians were encouraged to donate blood. According to the Charter 97 news channel, reporting on 5 and 6 March 2022, most low-ranked Belarusian soldiers were opposed to participating in the invasion of Ukraine. Charter 97 and its chief editor, Natalia Radina, also stated that Belarusian officers reported to their seniors that they would risk mutiny or mass surrender if they took their units into Ukraine. On the 10th of March, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine Oleksiy Danilov claimed that the invasion from Belarus was a backstab, unlike other directions of Russian invasion which were foreseen. On the 17th of March, the open-source investigators Motulko Help reported that more Russian Iskander missiles were deployed at the Machulishchi air base and air defense systems were seen on the territory of Belarus, such as Pantsir S-1 in the Minsk region and near the town of Mazir and S-400 at Beranovichy. According to Motulko Help, Belarusian soldiers were ordered to do the dirty job for the Russian forces, such as repairing damaged hardware and cleaning vehicles of dirt and human remains. On multiple occasions, NATO, US, and/or Ukrainian authorities have issued warnings that Belarus may imminently enter the war to assist Russia, including after the 11th of March accusations of a Russian-initiated false flag attack on Belarusian border settlements. On the 22nd of March, a senior NATO intelligence official stated that Belarus is preparing the environment to justify a Belarusian offensive against Ukraine, though the decision to join the war had not been made yet. Russian soldiers who returned to Belarus tried to sell the goods looted in Ukraine or send them to Russia. On the 2nd of April 2022, Ukrainian intelligence reported that Russian soldiers made a bazaar in Narulia to sell the goods like washing machines, refrigerators, cars, bicycles, dishes, carpets, works of art, jewelry, toys, cosmetics. On the 4th of April, Belarusian journalists published a 3-hour footage of Russian soldiers drawing up documents to send large amount of goods in a postal service in Mazir. One of them had the badge of 56th Guards Air Assault Brigade. Russian soldiers also tried to sell goods to Belarusians via the internet.